Hello everybody, here we are today continuing on with our season previews as we have the St. Louis Blues. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or the channel, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So, last year was a really disappointing year for the Blues. I know the season didn't seem terrible, I guess, in some points because there was some really good points in the season and they finished with 81 points on the year or something like that. And they had some good times, but they also had a lot of bad times. So what are some storylines going into this season for the Blues? So the first one is, can they stop the just painful backslides? Now they're kind of like the same situation where I talked about in the Penguins season preview. Pittsburgh was a team that had some long losing streaks that really derailed them. Now St. Louis started off the year 3-0. They might have been the last team in the NHL that was unbeaten. Maybe I'm wrong there, but they folded up with an 8-game losing streak. They actually had 3 losing streaks of at least 5 games. And there was multiple of those losing streaks that they ended up having no points in that. So you're looking at multiple games, multiple streaks, I should say, where not only are you losing, you're not getting any points. That's a no-no. 2 no-nos. You shouldn't have long losing streaks. That's a given. But you should not be, going empty-handed out of those games. You need to be coming away with some points. Where Pittsburgh did okay-ish in those longer losing streaks is they did pick up some OT points or some shootout points where they're able to pick up that extra point in the standings. St. Louis didn't. They had like 9.7% of their season with those streaks where they didn't get any points. Just gone. Blink of an eye, you have long losing streaks where you see yourself keep dropping in the standings, hang in the bottom, and you see everybody else getting up. And for them, after their first 11 games, yeah, probably was frustrating where they had to look at the standings and realize, these teams are probably going to get 4 points over this span. We would have to get 12 or something like that to be able to catch up. Probably not that dramatic early in the year, but the point remains, they just cannot be doing that. That's not going to be the recipe for success in a team that features some teams like Dallas, Colorado, that are almost like a lock for the top 2. So you're thinking, well, if we want to be third, we want to be a wild card, we're going to have to make sure things are done right. The first 7 games of the season for them will probably be the telltale of how their season will go. There's no real easy games. I think they have 1 game against Arizona, and again, that's not a given win. But a lot of these games are against teams that I think are more playoff hopefuls, where they probably missed last year, but they ended up, feeling that they could have a chance to make it this year. Calgary, Vancouver, those are some of those teams that they'll be playing in those first 7 games. It'll really be a good test to say, this is where those teams were last year. This is kind of where they see themselves this year. Where are we going to fit into the picture? Are we better than them? Are we worse than them? How do these first 7 games go? Because then after that, you've got the early to middle part of November. They've got games against the Devils, games against the Avalanche. I think game against the Lightning, at least one of those. So the first part and the middle part of November are not so great. I do think towards the back end of November, things get a little better there. So it's going to be a situation where I don't want to just keep looking through every game and say, oh, their first 7 games are going to be good, and then their next 13 are going to be hard, and then their final, whatever games until December are going to be easy. But it is going to be one of those situations where in that span, we're going to see them get tested and we'll see how they do, because if they start off poorly, you're going to say, well, they probably aren't going to have enough momentum to get back into the thick of it, just like we saw last year. The second talking point is, will things be awkward between the team and Torrey Krug? Now, Krug is a guy that came in after Alex Pietrangelo departed for Vegas, had some really good years with Boston, was expected to be this, this really good offensive defenseman for the Blues, and I do think in some aspects, he has been good offensively. However, you're not seeing those seasons where he's having the 50-point range. I think that he has most in St. Louis has been like 43 points in a season, something like that. And obviously last year kind of felt frustrating. His plus minus wasn't great. I know a lot of people pay attention to that. And then the offseason saw him where he was involved in a trade. Problem is, he has a no movement clause. Guess what? He didn't want to go to Philly, and he rejected it, and some fans were angry from both sides. And I think Blues fans were more so frustrated because they probably want to get the contract off the books. But, Krug has the right to do that. That is his no movement clause that is in there. The veterans obviously want to have it so they don't end up, on a terrible team. And with Krug, he's in a spot where he came over and he hasn't even been there that long. I do think that it probably will be a little bit awkward, and it is going to be in those situations where I think the Blues probably still would like to trade him. Problem is he has 4 years left on his deal, if I'm not mistaken, so that is quite a bit of time for a guy that is older, has played a lot of games in the NHL. What teams would want him? How much would they want you to eat up in the cap? All kind of remains to be seen, and with his no movement clause, where does he want to go? And does that even fit what trades they could make happen for them? I don't really know. Until then, I will say he probably will have to be a fit in their top 4. And they're hoping that in general he can be part of a bounce back for the Blues. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's that crazy right now. But I also have seen stories where they still want to kind of ship him out if they can. So we'll see if this kind of reaches a boiling point for the guy that was expected to replace Pietrangelo. The final talking point here is Berube on the hot seat for the Blues. Now, he is a coach that's come on in and done something that no other coach in Blues history has been able to do, which is win a Stanley Cup. He took over for the team and was able to rally the boys when things weren't going particularly well, able to get them to the Stanley Cup final and, coach this side to a Stanley Cup final championship. This is a team that's been around for a long time. Since 1967, for them to finally get the deal done was obviously a good thing. And things started off really well for them, winning the Cup. Following year, having a really good year. I think they finished with the best record in the Western Conference that following season. Won the division title, obviously, but things have kind of slowly gone wrong in the following seasons. There hasn't been those deep playoff runs that they were hoping for, and with Berube, you're kind of wondering too, he's in a market that the Blues have made the playoffs past 10 of 11 seasons. The 1 year they didn't make it, they missed out on the final game of the year, if I remember correctly, because me and my friend were at a minor league hockey game and we're just kind of watching it on our phones while the game was going on. They played a do or die game against the Avalanche, but kind of the point remains that they've basically been a playoff team almost every season over the past decade plus. This is a market that expects and demands playoff hockey. They are an older market that has had some good points. And then again, with their recent success where things started off rosy with the championship, with the division title, with being the top seed in the Western Conference, but then no real playoff success since that Stanley Cup final. You kind of wonder if his seat is hot. A lot of people view it as one of the hottest seats in the NHL right now. I kind of agree because, again, expectations are high in St. Louis, and I would like to see what happens here. I don't want to see him get the axe if he had another 80-point-something season, but I do think that that is the way the Blues could operate things. Again, I don't want to see it happen, but, when you have those expectations and you're not living up to them and you're not making the playoffs and you're having really long losing streaks early in the year that basically just derail the season and derail possibly fan interest, you could see somebody take the axe for it, and that could be Craig. So before we get to my final thoughts for the Blues, I apologize if you hear a lot of banging in the background. The town I live in has this really dumb festival where they set off fireworks late at night, and it's annoying when I'm trying to record videos. But anyway, for the Blues, what are my thoughts on them? They are a side that's going to be really fun to watch. They weren't particularly great defensively last year. Offensively, they should be kind of fun to watch with some of those younger guys that have just risen and been able to grow as players. They've got some interesting pieces. They've got Kevin Hayes. They've got Jacob Vrana. Vrana, obviously, you're hoping to see his career get back on track after things kind of have derailed, unfortunately. And for the Blues, they're hoping that Jordan Binnington can get things back on track too, because there was 11 games last year where he allowed 5+ goals in a game. So there were some games where he allowed 6. I think there was a game where he allowed 7, if I'm not mistaken. So the Blues have a lot of work to do if they want to get back to the playoffs. Do I see them being a playoff team? I don't, unfortunately. I think the additions, while interesting, don't really address the issues where, especially with Binnington, as much as I hate to say it, I don't even know if I hate to say it because he's had some really bad moments where he's made a fool of himself. The goaltending situation might not be great. The defense probably won't be great. And I do think that, unfortunately, Craig will probably get fired. I don't know if they'll finish 6th again last year. I think that's where they finished. Currently, JFresh has them finishing with like 84 points on the season. I could probably see that where the offense is able to get some things done. But in general, I'm just not buying into this team being a playoff caliber team for this season. Anyway, what are your thoughts for the St. Louis Blues? Leave them down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.